So we are fresh off of the Tampa Pro stage, tan on and all. But I wanted to make this video while all the emotions and really everything was fresh on my mind. Directly after the show, we got the judges' feedback. We stayed after, we talked to the head judge, Steve Weinbeger. We talked to the judge who actually judged me multiple times throughout my career, Bill, and he gave me tons of amazing feedback on things that I need to do in order to improve, to be the best version of myself and make it back to the Olympia stage. But first, let me start off by saying this show was a much needed motivator and honestly, a confidence builder going into future shows. I can't say enough. You know, Chicago Pro definitely was a roller coaster of emotions and had me questioning a lot. But the Tampa Pro gave me that confidence. There was 35 competitors who competed, and out of those 35, I was in that first call out of only 4. For those of you who are unaware of the significance of that, typically in a first call out, there's 8, but they were confident in the first 4 people to be called out because they thought that we were such a separator from everybody else who was in the lineup. And trust me when I say, there were 9 total Olympians in this lineup, and for us to have created enough distance between ourselves definitely spoke volumes, especially when just 2 weeks earlier, Steve Weinbeger was the one who judged me at the Chicago Pro, where I placed 8th. So to be now moved up in a stronger lineup, a lineup with 9 Olympians, and honestly, very small time frame in between, we made a lot of improvements in a very short amount of time, and it was needed. And I'm really excited to carry this momentum into future shows. Even though it was the biggest show of the year, hands down, for almost every single division that walked across the stage, it was still ran efficiently and managed very well. Now, what wasn't managed very well was also something that potentially set my physique back for prejudging, was my meal timing. Now, my body is very sensitive, just like a lot of people's bodies are on show day, but my midsection doesn't have a lot of detail to start. So in order to keep an exaggerated amount of detail, very similar to how we did in Miami, we have to make sure that the food that I intake on show day isn't too much, but in the same breath has enough distance that it can actually take time to digest. My food digests quickly, but the detail and the expansion of the stomach and sometimes the waist takes a little bit of time to come back to its normal shape. And because of that, our timing was off. The way that the show moved, we planned for it to be a little bit longer of anticipated, but they actually got things moving very fast. So when I thought I was going to be on stage around 12:30, 12:45, I was actually on stage around 12 o'clock. So again, those small details was something that I didn't necessarily anticipate. And because of that, I do think it had a little bit of a hindrance in my look. But even outside of that, being in that top 4 was amazing. Being called in the first call out was amazing, just emotionally after Chicago. So getting in there, I was ready to battle. And in that top 4, the first move that they made was putting me in the middle. So they saw the potential. They saw that this guy's structure, this guy's back, this guy's shoulders, fullness was everything that they were looking for. But that detail that I was missing was that detail. So after that, they did move me to what was the outside of the 4-man call out. And even though they were shuffling a lot of people around, that's where we ended up for prejudging. Now, finals. Well, let's take a step back. In between finals, my food still hasn't digested. So what I really needed to focus on during that time was giving my body a little bit more time to digest and breathe and allow my lines and detail to come back to its normal form. And sure enough, it did. So we had a little bit of food going into finals. Finals was only roughly 2.5 hours, 3 hours separated from prejudging. So we didn't have an exaggerated amount of time. And the reality of that, typically when it is a show that is very close to each other, prejudging finals, they don't rejudge. So because of that, the placings were pretty set in stone from the start. But data still needed to be collected for future shows. So again, going into it with a very small amount of food, we had about 200 grams of rice. We had 1 small muffin that was, again, maybe 6 grams of fat and 12 grams of carbs. So again, very small. but it was enough to allow my food to digest while still staying full. And by the time I stepped on stage at finals, my look had drastically changed. The detail had drastically changed. And not only with adding a little bit more oil to my body and overall midsection was specific, it helped make everything come to life during finals. And that was everything. Now, was it enough to move me from the potential 4th place spot all the way up to 1st? The reality is no. And I knew that going into it. We ended up placing 3rd. And even though it was not what we came for, like I said, I'm proud of it, especially after what happened just 2 weeks prior. So let's first start off with Bill. So Bill was amazing. Bill has actually judged me for my pro debut. He has seen me grow physically, emotionally, spiritually, and just overall knowledge-wise within this sport. And he is someone who has supported me, and he's been very hard on me, but in the same breath, only saw the potential that I had, and that is why he was so hard on me. And in this show, it was nothing less, nothing different. And because of it, he told me, Alex, I have seen you at your best, I have seen you at your worst, and you are far from your worst, and you're closer to your best. But if you can bring in that detail, that hardness that I know you have, then you will be one of the best in the world. But he also mentioned this, and this is a raw reality of my physique at this point. Guys, I'm 26 years old. At every given show, I'm one of the youngest, if not the youngest, on the stage. I was 26 when I stepped on the Olympia stage, and that made me the 2nd youngest of everybody. So because of that, there's a lot of maturity in my body that needs to take place, hardness that needs to take place, that just simply comes with time, more energy, and more just, again, a lot of time in the gym, banging around iron and just simply building the physique up. So I've been in bodybuilding for 5 years, and that might seem like a lot of time to a lot of people, but the reality is, for a bodybuilder, that's extremely young. Then you attach my age to it, very young. So we have a lot of time to truly build upon a physique, but at the same time to simply allow my body to do what it wants to do naturally, which is just simply grow, harden, and mature. And again, that's just something that comes with time, but that doesn't mean I take my foot off the gas and wait for that time to come, right? And that's something where he emphasized. He was like, you're there. You're right there. Your body will get better with time, just naturally. But what you've been able to build from the first time he saw me at my pro debut to where I am now, he said that doesn't come without effort, hard work, and at the end of the day, he expects me to be at the Olympia in that call out, regardless. So again, maturity was the main thing that I got from Bill. Now, when it comes to Steve, this one was important because I was judged by Steve just 2 weeks ago at the Chicago Pro, where he placed me 8th. Now, at the Tampa Pro, he moved me dead center, but ended up placing 3rd. So he saw the potential of my physique, but in the same breath, he wanted to see more. And it was clear from the movement on stage. So what did I do? I jumped off stage. I talked to Steve, and the simple thing was this. He wants to see me a little bit harder through the midsection. He said the fullness was much improved. He said I can get a little bit bigger through the chest, a little bit fuller through the chest. My shoulders and arms are exactly where they need to be. He said just a little bit more oblique detail, and that's going to separate you from everybody else. And he said, at the end of the day, maturity is going to be something that is only going to be working in my favor as time progresses. But he still expects, like Bill, for me to be in the Olympia first call out if I can maximize my look. And that's really what this is all about. You know, it's me trying to learn my body enough to fully maximize it. At the end of the day, we've done a lot of things different for this prep. And we've made significant improvements by actually slowing it down and doing less in order to get more out of my look. And I truly believe that that is the reason why I was able to be in the first call out and finish 3rd at the biggest men's physique show of the year. So the question is, what's next? And the answer is, I'll be back on stage. Tomorrow, we start peak week because we're stepping back on to compete at the